The movie kicks off with Tom, a no-nonsense detective, snoozing on his couch. His peaceful morning takes a turn when he spots a group of thugs trying to steal a car outside his window. Without hesitation, he storms out to confront them. Tom warns them to back off, but the clueless thieves refuse, unaware they've just signed up for a masterclass in street justice. A brutal brawl ensues, with Tom coming out victorious. He leaves them battered, warning that if he sees them again, it'll be their last mistake. The next day, however, the tables turn. The media is buzzing with reports that Tom savagely beat up some innocent boys. Suddenly, he's public enemy number one, and his entire department is under fire. Concerned about his reputation and temper, the department sends Tom to a counselor, but Tom, being Tom, shows no interest in softening his ways, brushing off the session with his signature rude charm. Back at the station, we meet Elizabeth, a constable who opens up to Tom about her struggles. She reveals she'd been undercover in a drug ring, and to maintain her cover, she had to use drugs. Unfortunately, the line between work and reality blurred, and she ended up in rehab. After getting clean, she attempted the sergeant's test again, but failed, resulting in her demotion to constable. Later, Tom catches up with Bruce, the chief inspector, who's drowning in grief after his wife's death. To lighten the mood, Tom takes Bruce to a bar. Between drinks and jokes, Tom manages to coax a rare laugh out of his devastated colleague, proving that even in the darkest times, Tom's rough humor has its charm. The story takes a grim turn as a female officer, walking alone down the street, is suddenly confronted by a hooded man who pulls a gun and shoots her. The chilling murder shakes the department, and Tom rushes to the crime scene. When asked about Bruce, Tom informs everyone that Bruce is still grieving the loss of his wife and won't be back on duty for a while. But with a police officer murdered, the department can't afford delays. To fill the void left by Bruce, they bring in a temporary inspector, Porter. His arrival isn't exactly a warm welcome. Many officers refuse to work under his leadership, not because of his skills, but because he's openly gay. Despite their resistance, their superior orders them to follow Porter's command, leaving them with no choice. Surprisingly, Porter finds an unexpected ally in Tom, the department's resident loose cannon with a reputation for bending, or breaking, the rules. Though rough around the edges, Tom respects results, and the two form a reluctant partnership. Meanwhile, Elizabeth faces a tricky situation when a young gang member nicknamed Metal shows up at her door. Shaken, he confesses his fear that his gang may have killed someone. Sympathizing with the troubled teen, Elizabeth promises to help one last time, but she gives him an ultimatum. If the victim is alive, Metal must leave the gang. If the man is dead, he must leave the city. Seeking advice, Elizabeth turns to Tom and tells him everything. After hearing her out, Tom suggests she involve Craig. Reluctantly, Elizabeth approaches Craig, who agrees to help, but not without conditions. His price? A date with Elizabeth, which leaves her happy as he's hot, and she desperately needed a boyfriend. The tension escalates when a reporter receives a chilling call from Barry, the self-proclaimed cop killer. Barry coldly admits to murdering the officer and reveals his twisted plan to target more. "I'm just getting started," he boasts, before shooting another officer mid-conversation. As he ends the call, he drops a bombshell. There are 8 more officers on his hit list. The gruesome news spreads like wildfire, shaking the entire department. Porter meets Tom to assess the man behind the stories. Their conversation takes an intriguing turn when Tom realizes Porter knows more about him than expected. Before they can dig deeper, another report comes in. Another officer has been shot. The team springs into action, arresting criminals across the city and mobilizing their informants with clear orders to stay alert. Tom reaches out to Radner, one of his trusted informants, who tips him off about Barry Weiss. Radner mentions Barry's recent bragging about setting a police dog on fire, claiming it was just for practice. Alarmed, Tom and Porter pay Barry a visit. When Barry answers the door, his calm demeanor barely masks his surprise. Recognizing him instantly, Tom recalls their clash at a billiard hall a year ago. Not one to hold back, Tom mocks Barry to rattle him before leaving with Porter. Barry, meanwhile, senses the walls closing in. Taking no chances, Barry gathers some belongings and relocates them to a secret hiding spot. Unbeknownst to him, Radner shadows his every move, uncovering the stash's location, a crucial lead that could change the game. Radner, determined to play detective, stumbles upon a major breakthrough. He tracks down a seemingly abandoned car, and inside, he uncovers the chilling truth: Barry's macabre collection of trophies from his victims. With this discovery, Radner confirms that Barry is indeed the killer terrorizing the city. Meanwhile, Bruce, struggling with his grief and poor coping mechanisms, has a moment of clarity while buying liquor. Realizing he's spiraling, he decides it's time to get his life back on track. Determined, he reports back to work, ready to rejoin the force. However, Barry has already marked Bruce as his next target. As Bruce heads home, he is unaware that Barry is following him. Once inside his apartment, Bruce hears a knock at the door. Opening it, he's immediately attacked. Despite being caught off guard, Bruce fights back, grabbing a hammer to defend himself. However, Barry overpowers him, snatching the hammer and brutally bludgeoning him. With Bruce lifeless on the floor, Barry casually settles in, watching television like it's just another evening. Before leaving, he steals Bruce's uniform, adding another layer of insult to the tragedy. Later, Barry calls the reporter once again, boasting about his latest kill. He chillingly declares, "That's number 3, Bruce. Make sure my name is in tomorrow's papers. Call me Blitz." When Tom hears the devastating news about Bruce's murder, he's left in shock and grief. Losing Bruce, a close friend and colleague, fuels his determination to stop Barry, no matter the cost. Barry, ever the meticulous predator, loads his belongings into the trunk of a car, unaware that Tom's informant has been tailing him closely. The informant sneaks a peek at Barry's stash, confirming his suspicions. With this critical information, he contacts the same reporter Barry has been calling, offering to expose the killer's identity for a hefty price of 50 grand. The reporter agrees, and the informant directs him to a parking lot. When the reporter arrives, the informant shows him the evidence in Barry's car, including Bruce's stolen uniform. Though skeptical at first, the reporter is convinced by the damning uniform and agrees to pay the informant. Unbeknownst to them, Barry has been watching from the shadows. As they leave the parking lot, Barry swiftly retrieves his belongings, erasing any proof left behind. Meanwhile, Elizabeth visits Craig to follow up on the injured man connected to her earlier case. Craig assures her that the man is alive, but hasn't disclosed any names yet. When she asks if he'll call her tomorrow, Craig's dismissive response infuriates her, and she leaves, feeling betrayed and frustrated. Elsewhere, the reporter and the informant head to a bar to finalize their shady deal. The reporter hands over the promised $50,000, but insists on knowing the killer's name. The informant, feeling cheeky, tells him to wait until he returns from the bathroom. However, fate has other plans. Barry, having tracked them to the bar, follows the informant to the restroom. The informant freezes in terror when he sees Barry pleading for his life and swearing he hasn't revealed his name. But Barry isn't one for second chances. Without hesitation, he kills the informant and escapes the bar, pocketing the 50 grand for himself. Dunlop, the reporter, tips off the police about the car containing Barry's stash. However, by the time authorities arrive, the car is completely empty. Meanwhile, Tom and another officer piece together a chilling realization. Barry, now known as Blitz, has been targeting officers who had arrested him in the past. This puts Elizabeth squarely in his crosshairs. After returning home from her date with Craig, Elizabeth is ambushed by Barry. The situation turns deadly when Metal, the young gang member she had previously helped, intervenes to protect her. In the struggle, Metal loses his life, but his bravery delays Barry just long enough for the police to arrive, forcing Barry to flee before he can harm Elizabeth further. Determined to end Barry's reign of terror, Tom and Porter take a bold step. They release his photograph to the media, ensuring the entire city is on the lookout for him. The strategy works, triggering a high-stakes chase that ends with Barry being captured. Despite the victory, the lack of solid evidence leaves the police frustrated. After an intense 48-hour interrogation yields no results, they're left with no choice but to release Barry. Furious and desperate, Tom and Porter come up with a risky plan. They decide to use Barry's grudge against Tom, stemming from the infamous billiard hall fight, to lure him out. Barry, eager for revenge, infiltrates Chief Inspector Bruce's funeral, disguised in Bruce's stolen uniform. During the funeral, Tom slips out, leading Barry to a parking garage rooftop. Barry discovers too late that Tom and Porter had swapped places, allowing Tom to ambush him. After overpowering Barry, Tom explains there's no solid evidence to convict him, but points out the situation works in their favor. Barry, dressed as a cop, can be framed as Blitz's final victim. Tom then shoots him with his own gun. Porter cleans up the scene, ensuring no traces are left. Later, Tom sets dogs on Dunlop, the reporter, as payback for his articles against the police. With Barry gone, order is restored, though Tom's methods remain as ruthless as ever.
Well, that's the end of this recap. How did you like this film? Let me know in the comments.